Good morning, and welcome back to West Ham and Official. Hope you are all well. The Monday morning chat back for another week as we get ready for the working week, whether you're having a bacon sandwich, a coffee, frantically running around the house, getting ready to leave. I hope you are all well. I'm here to discuss a few West Ham related topics on this Monday morning to sort of assist you through your day and whatever you're doing. A couple of things we're going to discuss. Conor Gallagher is the first one. And a bit of news that came towards the start of last week about Mark Warburton leaving the club at his role as assistant coach. So we're going to discuss whether that was a meaningful job, whether his exit is meaningful, or whether it was irrelevant, whether it makes no difference to West Ham at all. That's coming up a little bit later. But we're going to start with Conor Gallagher. It's a player that the sort of rumour has re-emerged over time. A couple of years ago, there was a link with him when we were also linked and reportedly very close to signing Brozier from Chelsea as well. So we were sort of trying to get a raid out, and then we got Zuma around that period as well. But it wasn't meant to be at that point. I think he was just about to go to or just come back from Palace, and he's come back from Crystal Palace from his season-long loan there. He absolutely ripped it up, did really, really well at Crystal Palace, fitted into the side and really impacted and caught a few eyes. Which was the sort of whole point of that loan. And then he came back to the car crash that is Chelsea this season. A couple of stats from his Chelsea 2022-23 season. He played 35 games in the Premier League. That is appearances, so it's not starts. Over those 35 games, he averaged 46 minutes per game. So what I can assume is a lot of starts and coming off at half-time, or a lot of substitute appearances. So there was no real clear starting every week sort of philosophy and essential sort of trust there between whatever manager it was at that point of the season and him. He wasn't a mainstay in that side, is what I was trying to say. He played games here and there, he got minutes here and there, but he wasn't one of the first names on the team sheet. He didn't break through the way he did and become a pivotal player the way he did at Crystal Palace, despite Chelsea's pathetic Premier League form last season. So I mean, that was always to be expected from a player that couldn't quite get into a Chelsea side, who wasn't getting the game time he wanted, to then go out on loan to a Premier League side, a mid-table expected side in Crystal Palace, and become then a sort of big fish in a small pond, to then go back to being a small fish in a big pond again with Chelsea. And whether he wants to leave, I don't know. Will Chelsea let him go? Probably. You can expect another sort of rebuild from Chelsea this summer with Poch coming in. He's probably going to make up a list of players that he wants to get rid of and ones he wants to keep. Whether Conor Gallagher's on the keep or sell list, I'm not too sure. But it's been reported that, where I'm getting with this is that Fabrizio Romano yesterday reported that that West Ham have shown an interest yet again this summer in signing the English midfielder Conor Gallagher. My thoughts on this: obviously, it's price dependent because we're not going to have. We're not going to have massive amounts of money to spend, because Sullivan's going to be reluctant this summer, and people are forgetting this. We spent £150 million last summer, and yes, we won a trophy, but the Premier League rewards were lacking to a big extent. I'm reluctant to think that Sullivan's going to pump the same amount of money back in this summer. I don't think he's going to spend more than the money we get from Rice. If he spends 100 million, I'll be surprised if he spends that much. That's all I'm going to say. I can't see him breaking the bank once again, apart from the money that will come through the door for player sales, such as obviously the obvious one in Declan Rice. Has this rumour got legs? Possibly. We're going to be a need for a midfielder. Moyes likes proven players, and Conor Gallagher's proved himself at points this season, and we know he was a huge fan of his when he was at Crystal Palace. I don't think Palace fans have got too much of a bad word to say about Gallagher. They were slightly disappointed that he didn't come back on a permanent basis. When I spoke to some Palace fans, they felt that it was probably the best move for him, and they're probably looking quite correct, because he hasn't been able to have the success and have the expected and knowingness of having game time every single week and being expected. That first team football agreement that he probably had at Crystal Palace, he just hasn't got at Chelsea. He hasn't been promised to play Premier League football every single week like he did do at Crystal Palace. So could a move to West Ham be on the cards for him? A side like West Ham in European football, he will get into that side from a Conor Gallagher perspective, if I'm thinking and putting myself into his shoes, it would probably be a deal if I was Gallagher that I get behind. As I said, European football, if Rice goes guaranteed pretty much to get into that midfield, play every single week if he doesn't get injured, and probably be a bit more successful than what he currently is and what, the season that he had. He went from being talked about as a really good player at Palace the season before to going back to Chelsea, and everybody sort of forgot about him. He hasn't really been a talked about name as he has done, as he has been in the past. So for me, Conor Gallagher, has he got that ability there? Possibly. I'm a fan of his. I wouldn't be against the signing as long as we don't pay too much for him. 30 million, I think, is how much I pay for him. Any more, you're entering unknown circumstances for me, in my opinion. It's a risk over that. But it's whether Moyes still has faith and still wants the player. And he thinks, if Moyes thinks he can get the best out of the player in a midfield role, potentially bring a sort of more creative spark to things as well alongside Paqueta. Could they play quite well together? I'm not too sure. I'd be excited if we paid the right money. I'm a fan of his more than the average West Ham fan. I think I've seen a lot of criticisms of the link to Gallagher. Not good enough. Many people have mentioned. I don't know. I think there's potential with a player like Conor Gallagher there. I'd be excited if he came to West Ham, but of course, as it always has to be, it can't be too much money because we're going to have a limited budget and we need to sign 4 or 5 players really this summer. So we need to be wise in the way we spread out and spend our money in different areas and different positions this summer. The second thing I want to talk about, it involves Mark Warburton because I don't know. Vine Stuart Pearce left the club, a good year, 18 months ago now. At the end of the season before last season, I think it was. And there was a hole there that was quite obvious. Some people have mentioned whether they saw the burning ship that we saw in the Premier League and got away whilst they could, or whether they just felt their time was up and they deserved a bit of a break. I'm not too sure. And Mark Warburton came in. It didn't surprise me, the appointment. It's what I expected, that sort of calibre of signing for Moyes to join his backroom staff. And is it a coincidence that our form drastically took a turn as soon as Mark Warburton came into the club? Is that too harsh on Mark Warburton? I'm not too sure. He mentioned in his resignation sort of statement that he felt it was his time in his career to move on to a more senior level, which potentially means trying to get a managerial role somewhere. Whether he'll get that, I'm not too sure. But I mean, he hasn't filled himself in too much glory. Of course, we won the competition, but we were dreadful in the league. Does he have something to do with that? I'd possibly say yes. The assistant coach has probably got quite a lot to do with. He's what I'd describe as Moyes' right-hand man, and whether he was more defensive minded than potentially Irvine and Pearce, that may have swayed Moyes potentially to make decisions that he wouldn't have done this season before. I'm not too sure whether we're reading into this or not. Will it make a hell of a lot of difference next season without Warburton there? Of course, only time will tell. Will we see a significant difference on the pitch? Potentially, it would surprise me, but there's always a chance that sort of impact that Warburton had there wasn't a good one, and maybe that's why he's left after just a season at the club. We've just won a European trophy and he's left. Has there been some sort of conflict between players and managers and backroom staff? I don't know. He hasn't spoke up a lot. I think he did a couple of post-match interviews. He's just sort of a signing that we went, oh, right, okay, at the start of the season, and then we haven't really discussed him since, and all of a sudden he's left. So it's been a bit strange to an extent, but will we see a differing approach next season without Warburton there, without his sort of input? I'm not too sure. Is it meaningful? Is it irrelevant? I think only time will most certainly tell. So the 2 topics I've discussed on this Monday morning: Conor Gallagher, I'd be more excited about the signing if we made him. If we made that signing, then I think there's potential, and I think there's a really good player that could fit into this midfield really, really well and have a decent impact and play first team football. Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that we have reignited our interest in the Chelsea midfielder, so there could be legs with that deal. That's a very much Moyes Rice replacement deal that I could see going through. That is realistic in my opinion. And of course, Mark Warburton that I've just discussed as well. Has he made any difference, negative, positive? I'm not so sure. But yeah, that's it from me. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, drop a like and subscribe to West Ham Official if you're new to our channel. Sponsors SRM Carver and some by clicking the link in the description. down below, and thank you very much for the support, as we have this week gone past 30,000 subscribers. It's a bit surreal saying that, so I'd say huge thank you to every single one of you watching the video, and if you haven't already, of course, subscribe. That's it from me. But I've plenty of content coming up. The transfer train is certainly not stopping. Rumours keep coming, bids keep coming in for a certain midfielder, and we will keep you up to date, as always, right here on West Ham Official. From me, come on you irons, and we'll see you soon right here on West Ham Official. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.